Hello, let's take a dive into what's going on in Bitcoin and are we starting the next upswing, which is the key question on everybody's mind at the moment. Here we are, we're just past, I think, 100 days past halving, and on average, after a halving, the new all-time high price in Bitcoin is usually 547 days. So we're not there yet. That's where the peak of the next swing is. Where the bottom is post-halving is usually, sometimes it's been 100 days, but on average it's like 150, 170 days after halving, and we're not quite there yet. So although I really do like the bullish corrective look of where we are in Bitcoin, and I think the correction since March has been a big wave 4, I am just a little bit cautious that we are about to go, even though stuff is so bullish in stocks. So let's talk about why. First off, seasonally, let's look at where we are. Bitcoin is a really nice, trendy asset, but it has 2 months of the year when it tends to underperform. One of them is August, and very often it's September. So I think it's a little bit it's a good idea to be a little bit cautious that this is the start of a new swing, because seasonally it's not Bitcoin's favorite time. So let's take a look at where we are. This is spot Bitcoin, not Bitcoin futures. The only difference between the two charts really is the position of the moving averages. If we take a look at if we are in Bitcoin futures, we're bouncing off a very nice 200-week moving average, whereas in the spot Bitcoin, we're stuck in between the twos, and we can see previously here we are underneath the weekly 20 moving average, which is a really nice trend support. But we can see previously, for example, August 2023, mid-month we got stuck underneath this weekly 20 moving average and the weekly 200 moving average, and we got stuck in this sideways range until the beginning of October, when we could break out. And that kind of tends to happen. August tends to be a little bit choppy and sideways. This was September 2022, the year before. So it's just, whilst I want to be bullish, I think if we can break above this weekly 20 moving average, we are really nicely set for a run to the top of this channel that we are in. And that for me is going to be the key thing. So that's the key level. 61,500 in spot Bitcoin is the level that we need to hold above if we're going to take a bigger run back up to 68,000, maybe towards 70,000. So let's talk about the level that we're looking at, because when we're in these corrective patterns, we tend to see kind of patterns repeat. So if we take a look, I'm just going to use fibs for this, right? So if we take a look at this first big pullback that we have, and where did we bounce to? And if we do that, we can see from this high to this low, we did a really nice 886 fib retrace from this low to high. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, what's the 886 fib retrace? Well, the fib number, obviously, the 61.8 is the one, and 786 is the square root of 61.8. 786 fib is a very common fib, and 886 is just the square root of 7.786. That's all it is. So it's just, if the 786 is the square root of 61.8, then 886 is the square root of 786. And do they work? Yeah, it does work. So we come all the way up to this 886 and we continue lower. And if we move our fibs down to this swing here, we have a nice big ABC. Where did we bounce back up to? 886 fib from this high, and we double topped. Now let's move ourselves down to this next big swing. So we had this next big swing that started at the beginning of June and bottomed out at the beginning of July. Where did we reverse and couldn't get back above? 69,800. Which is basically a retest of 70,000 from underneath, but it's also from this swing, the 886 fib retrace. So I think it's quite reasonable to say, if we look at where we are now, move ourselves down, we're going sideways at this kind of level in the middle here, If I think it's quite reasonable to say that if we get above this weekly 20 moving average, the 886 fib is where we're likely to rally to, and that's where we're going to meet resistance. If we measure it from this high here, then that's 67,600. But if we take this swing as a bigger kind of ABC, 69,300 and a retest of this high. I don't know which one it's going to be, to be honest. I think it's quite, we should really say that it's going to be somewhere between 69,300 and 68,000 resistance on the upside. We could also, if we, let's go back to just this most recent swing that we are inside of, and let's go down a time frame, because if we look at it from this most recent swing, our resistance has been the 61.8 fib retrace level at 62,000, and we've done a very nice three-wave pullback to the 38.2, which is what you tend to do in the golden ratio zone in between the 61.8 and 38.2. Here we're going sideways, but we're still underneath these moving averages. So this is our resistance if we measure it this way. But I also, so 62,000, but I also like to put the fibs on the whole swing, because what we've been doing quite a lot here, the 50% is always a big deal. So that level is 61,400. So I think if we can hold and close above 61,400 or trade intraday above 62,000, that there is a good chance that we are then in another swing higher from here. So yeah, we're retesting the highs, and just with moving averages, this is also the daily 50 moving average. That was resistance when we tried on the 8th of August. It was resistance when we tried here on the 15th of August. It was support here when we got above it. It's a really kind of very clear trend guide. We can see that we have very often reversed at this big daily 50 moving average. So we've got quite a lot of overhead trouble here, and we're not quite through it. If we do push through it this week though, that's where we're looking for. Back up to the highs here, 68,000, 69,300, and a retest of the highs around the end of July. So not quite out of trouble. Those are the levels I'm looking at. What would be if we go down shorter term? So if we look to the daily and the weekly. So I have this thing, when you look at a bottom, so when a market makes a triple bottom, very often a double bottom is very easy. You can see it's the same level, but a triple bottom very often is a false breakdown or breaks the level and then bounces back for a sharp reversal. And that false breakdown very often is the sharp trick. And this happens as well with trend lines. I know I say this a lot. Third touches of trend lines are very often false breakouts. You see this in other markets all the time. So here, if we draw a trend line from the high on the 8th of August to the high that we made on the 14th of August, here we are. We've had that little false breakout thing going on here. When I see that, especially when it's a three-wave corrective move like this, there is a possibility that we could reverse here and head lower, and this was, just a false move. For me, when I'm not sure, I take the low from the whole swing and I look at where I put on the 236 fib. For me, that's like my fib trend. So if we break that 236 fib, which here is at 60,000, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because this was 60,000 as a big round number. Here it was resistance. So as long as we can hold above 60,000, we're still going up. Back underneath 60,000, though, we're likely to see a bigger pullback back towards these shorter time frame moving averages, and not quite the bullish move higher that we're looking for. So at the moment, having recovered 60,000, Bitcoin really needs to hold above it to keep going higher. Otherwise, there is a risk that this just continues as the awful, ugly, choppy correction that has been, and we're not out of trouble. Short term, to get up here, we're a little bit overbought. I would like to see us have a little bit of a pullback. If you're thinking it is going to break out, everything looks good, it's going to follow stocks, keep going higher, then a pullback and a retest of this 60,000 level would be a really good place to do that. And especially if we can see it on a shorter term from here, like an hour, if we can see it as unfold as a three-wave pullback and we don't, and then we turn up strongly higher, that for me would be a really good look for more upside. At least you kind of lower your risk because you know where you're wrong and that price is not too far away. You know, everybody gets trades wrong. The key is to identify when they're not working and not lose too much on the ones that don't work. So that's where we are with Bitcoin. I think whilst we stay underneath these big daily moving averages, whilst we stay underneath this big deal now, 61,500, 62,000 resistance zone, we are at risk that, you know, Bitcoin loves double tops like this. And what it also really loves to do is retest lows and highs it's made. So like here, we made a high, we made a false break higher, and then we reversed. It wouldn't be weird at all in Bitcoin if we were to double bottom here or make a false break lower. That would be really kind of more bullish for me. Anyway, here we are in the middle, and it's really kind of not clear, but those are the levels that I'm looking at. 60,000 is really important support, and if we can hold above 62,000, we should have a really nice run higher to 68,000 from here.